Welcome to today's podcast, everyone. I'm really excited to be doing an interview after such a long time not having people on the podcast. This one's really special because it's with the wonderful BT McGee, Vanessa McEvoy, who I crossed paths with actually quite a few years ago, back in 2019. And we have been working together over the last year quite intensely, and it's been such an incredible journey. So, I want to give you a behind the scenes. I'm always talking about how amazing this emotional work is, processing your emotions and manifesting the life that you desire. But I think it really helps if you hear from someone who's actually been in and experienced my work, because there can be a lot of fears around it, and hear what challenges they worked through, the desires, where they're at, and so on. So let me hand it over to you, Vanessa, to just give us a little bit of an introduction. Who are you? Where do you live? What do you do? Go for it.
Hi, Vanessa, or BT McGee, as I'm known to many people on the socials. Um, yeah, I am on Ghana country, so that's Adelaide in South Australia. I work in food safety for the state government, and I've got a strong interest in, I guess, social justice and animal um, rights and indigenous rights and human rights and all the rest of that. So yeah, back in 2019, I went on the Hope for Health retreat because I thought that sounded like an amazing connection to the Yolngu people, and to walk on country with them. And I met Jin there, and such an amazing experience, I think, for both of us. Just sitting with people and just yarning and talking, and some of my favorite memories of in the mangrove swamp. I don't know if you remember that, Jin. But the Yolngu ladies would just disappear into the mangroves. You couldn't see them, but they would call to each other in this beautiful sing-song voice, and so you could find people. I was going very slowly because that mangrove was pretty difficult to navigate. But on that retreat, Jin was one of the practitioners, and Jin, I think you either stuck needles in my hip or I don't know, pressure point my hip. I don't know what you did. And I burst into tears. And you'd already warned me that sometimes your work makes people cry. um, and I said, what's going on? And you said, Vanessa, you're not living your soul purpose. And I went, yeah, whatever. Not ready to hear that yet. Move along. So fast forward, I think it was 2019, 2020. I got frozen shoulder in my left shoulder. And Jen, I think you said, was that I was emotionally taking on too much?
Yeah, so the underlying metaphysical meaning of left shoulder issues, well, both shoulders is about taking on a sense of responsibility, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, some of those cliche sayings. But the left shoulder specifically is that people just come and dump all their woes and worries on you, and you don't set a boundary to say, you know what, I can't handle it. You feel like you've got to be their shoulder to cry on, literally. And the body either has some sort of injury to the shoulder or frozen shoulder, which is quite unique, that says, right, you know what? I'm not going to let you use this because you're not listening to yourself. So, really, it is you've got to address your own emotional stuff before you've got the capacity to hold and support others.
Yeah, and at that time, I was told that I was going to be acting manager for about 3 months, and I didn't want that position. And I tried to say no, but I was told I couldn't say no. So it was sort of all dumped on me, and I had to let it all be dumped on me, just from the way it was happening. And I really struggled with it. And I went to, osteos, chiros, doctors, physical therapists, and they were like, there's nothing we can do. It's, 3 to 6 months to freeze, 3 to 6 months to be frozen, and 3 to 6 months to come out of freezing. And I'm like, well, that sounds horrible. I want to be able to use my shoulder. And you had done one of your Facebook things, and you said frozen shoulder is my favorite condition to treat because
Mm.
everybody says you can't treat it, but you can. And I was like messaging you madly, how do you treat this? How do you treat this? And I got out of it really quickly.
Amazing.
And it was also because my 3 month stint as acting manager also was just a very specific amount of time. So I came out of it, and my left shoulder ended up being way more flexible than my right shoulder.
Mm,
And it was amazing. I think when we did pins, pony, and tonic, you were sticking needles in me, and you said you wouldn't even know this had been frozen.
mm,
I was like, wow. And that's because I'd put in the work for it as well. Um, and so I'm like, okay, you've got chops with me now. Like you've stuck needles in me or pressure pointed me. I've cried. You've helped me out of frozen shoulder. So I'm following you along, and it's during the pandemic, and things got really weird. But it's just like, all right, let's keep going with this. And then I'd seen your release courses come up and let them go. I'm like, I don't know. There seems to be a lot of woo involved here, and I don't know about that. Science. What's with the woo? But then one day I just went, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do that. My body aches all the time. My feet feel seized up. Um, I'm not in a lot of pain. I just feel like I can't move like I used to. And I was doing yoga. I was doing vinyasa yoga. I was doing yin yoga. I was doing weightlifting. I was riding my bike to work every day. So that's about 24K. So I felt like I was doing all the physical things that you're supposed to do and your body's meant to feel great. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, what is going on? What else can be done here? Doing exercise, and my body is still seizing up. So all right, let's do release. I'm an instant yes person.
yeah.
Like there's no thinking about things sometimes, or sometimes I'll make a spreadsheet, um, and then I'll go, oh, I don't need the spreadsheet. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. I'm not doing it. So release ended up being an instant yes. And I went on that, and yeah, that was amazing. Things, that I had to let go of came up. And what about things that I had to give up? So yeah, there were some big breakthroughs. Chickpeas was one of them.
That's
So
we're going to dive into all of these a little bit later. Keep going though. I love this.
um, so yeah, the release course was amazing. It was just like tapping into that emotional state, how it relates to the physicality of it. Um, and just that, what am I doing? How am I doing it? How do I communicate with people? How do I communicate with myself? Especially how do I communicate with my husband, because he has a very I want to say limited communication. He's not wordy. He's not
Mm,
wordy, is how I'll put it. So I had to tap into how to you best communicate, um, knowing that that's a different style.
mm,
So it was really helpful. And during that time, um, my dog died, like on a release call. My dog died, um, and then another release call. My husband called me to say that he had um, injured his back and he couldn't get up. And I was like, I believe this call. I've got to go and deal with this. And then learning how to communicate through uh, that quite difficult situation. And we got through it, and it was amazing. Um, so then it was after the release course, I was like, okay, my body's still stiff, like, and I'm still doing all the things. What's next? And you were talking about your one-on-one work, and it was pitched at people who are in a lot of pain. And I'm like, well, I'm not in a lot of pain. So I think I rang you up and I said, well, what about, I'm just curious. Is this okay? Is curiosity okay? And you're like, of course it is, Vanessa. Curiosity is fantastic. You haven't gotten to crisis point yet.
mm.
So curiosity is a great place to nip it in the bud, so to speak. And that first call as well, you're like, so what do you want out of this? And then out of nowhere, I said, actually, I want to give land back. And you just sat there and went, that is it, Vanessa. That's the reason. And I went, okay, all right. So, I'd gone from this, we'd worked on Hope for Help. He helped me through the frozen shoulder. I was getting better at communication. I was having breakthroughs, and it was just like, need to take this a step further, and I need you to get your hands on me. And you arranged pin ponies and tonic, um,
Mm.
which was amazing.
Where are you at now? What happened afterwards, after the retreat?
Oh, what happened after the retreat? So I had an extra couple of days in Wanaka before I flew back to Adelaide, and we went on a trail ride. And I had my bomb-proof horse, and we were 5 minutes into the trail ride, and he got a bit spooked, and he started to do a few twisty turns, and I held on as much as I could, and then I felt him start to fall. So I kicked out of the saddle and landed on my side. So I got back to Adelaide. I got myself dressed. I got myself showered. I slept great in the hotel in Auckland. So again, I'm thinking, well, I just can't move it very well. Like, I'll just go to the urgent care clinic in Adelaide. The doctor walked in and she goes, well, you've got a fractured shoulder, a badly fractured shoulder. And I went, I don't believe you. Why doesn't it hurt? And she's like, I don't know what to tell you because you should be in a lot of pain. And
Mm.
I'm like, but I'm not. I just can't move it.
I'm going to
She's
pause
like,
you there
yeah,
because the way you have navigated this and everything is because of all the work that I believe that we did beforehand. I think I remember now you talked about one of your dogs and you were just such an animal lover. I think we've connected over animals a lot. You've always rescued dogs.
yes,
And I remember that call that we had where was it Maxie?
Maxie, yep,
Yeah. Maxie actually passed away on the call. And it was really beautiful to be in the background for that. We didn't actually know it was happening until after. But one of the things I hope it's okay to say is that you did talk about pet grief from when Keeper passed
yeah,
away. And this actually
yes,
came up in some of the releases that was really profound. We don't have to go into the details, but I just want to say that pet grief can be such a thing for people, and pets are sometimes, they sometimes mean more than humans mean to people in their life.
yeah.
Um, so I think people underestimate and they think, they have an assumption of what trauma looks like. But you did come to me in a pretty good space, but you knew that there was stuff to work on. So, do you want to talk a little bit more about the release course? Because a lot of people have got fear around coming into this course. What was your experience of it?
That it was quite an open and welcoming space. So yeah, like I didn't feel afraid going in because it was just because it had been my instant, yes, I was just open to everything. So I guess fear didn't play into it for me. You've talked about the fears people have. What are
Mm.
what are they normally, Jim?
Yeah. Oh, the first fear is what if I want to leave my relationship or quit my job? Because I see a lot of people in my life do that. Now, you're working full time for the government.
Mhm.
And the second one is what if I don't have the capacity to hold what comes up? And so I usually say it's like this fear of what will come up, especially if people know that they have had significant, in quotation mark, trauma. The third one is what if I don't go deep enough? What if I don't let go of what I want to? And what if I'm too sensitive? I'm an empath, like they really identify as that. And I don't, I won't be able to hear other people's stories and so on, which are exactly the reasons why people should come into release. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think people's experience and sharing about it is really helpful.
yeah. So I found people sharing about their stories like amazing because you get to hear how people hold on to things and perhaps work through how like I was working through how I held on to things as well. Um, so that was really interesting. I wasn't afraid of quitting my job because I've quit jobs before. I've been fired once. I call it being fired. It was walked out the door after a 6 month review because I didn't fit the culture. So I wasn't afraid of any of that and losing the relationship. I'm like, well, I'm quite strong in this relationship. I just know that there needs work to be done, and I'm happy to do that work. Going deep enough? Yeah, probably, because I do mask things with memes and humor.
Oh,
I
you're the
think I
queen of
posted a few
memes.
memes,
You're the one that I refer to. I have this client, she's the queen of memes.
and I think I put quite a few memes into the release Facebook page.
Yeah.
um, but I think humor can sometimes help you. get to the place you need to get to as well, because you're like, there is a darkness there. Um, but it's okay. Like it's okay to be dark, and it's okay to look at that dark, because that's part of who we are and what we do and how we navigate the world. So yeah, those fears I didn't have personally. So going in and just listening to, and that whole people don't want to take up space in release either. And it's just like, no, take up all the space. I think I did it a couple of times as well. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's like,
don't.
oh, I want to leave some time for someone else. I'm like, well, no one else is volunteering, so it's go for
So
it.
away you go. So learning to take up space, like I thought I did take up space, but you would call me on that and say, Vanessa, you're apologizing for taking up space. And it's like, okay, I tell other people to apologize for taking up space, and yet I'm doing it myself.
Mm.
So just navigating that, and uh, navigating the emotions that would come up, because I would try and I don't need to be emotional about that. It's gone, and just letting that emotion happen was really great. Because some people do find it difficult to cry, and I'm one of those people. And I was just like, just let it happen and let it flow, because it needs to be released.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And it's just so interesting to see the different people interact, like the different personalities and constitution types really comes out. And so not every single person is sharing on the call. And sometimes because of their suppressed emotions that hold them back, it might take them a little while to open up, a matter of weeks, or sometimes what I've experienced, it can take them a couple of rounds as well. So it's actually really useful when there's people like you who are willing to speak and willing to actually share what's going on for you. And we do have a lot of laughter on these courses, even though some really serious, horrible things sometimes are being shared as well.
yeah, yeah. And I remember thinking my releases are so quick, and other people's were taking a long time. And uh, you talked us through that some releases are really quick, because I'm like, oh, I just get it done. Like it takes me like maybe 5 minutes. Like, is that enough? Have I
I
released
actually
enough?
reckon, 1 to 3 minutes if you
Yeah,
are really onto it. Sometimes I'm working with people that can be quite unwell, where it's actually such an effort for them to speak. Now, usually we've worked together before they get to that point. So it's, say, for example, someone who's terminal with cancer, because I will work with people at that stage as well. And so you've got to learn the technique, ideally, and this is where I got you, before you're in a massive amount of pain. And so that you can call on it and still get the messages. That's what's been really a light bulb moment for me, is that it's no good just to go and process your emotions and feel good and feel calm. Like you've got to be able to get the message from your experience. What is it here to
yes,
tell you? What is it here to share with you? And you then got to put it into practice when you fell off the horse and broke your shoulder. There was just such peace and understanding from the get-go. And we will get to that. So yeah, you got to get the message, and it shouldn't be long and laborious. But usually what happens is people store so much that they're trying to get everything out in one go. So no, you're
yeah.
onto
So
everything.
so yeah, I was onto it like, just I know what I want to say. I know what I want from this message. And so when the messages are coming, we would find, I think, quite a few messages on those release calls,
Mm.
and on that one-on-one work. Just the weird stuff that would come out. And it was just like, okay, all right, let's pay attention to that. And
Yeah,
yeah, so I've been able to keep going with that. Um,
I
so
love that because so many people will feel the energy of release. It can be intense. It just really depends how you navigate it. Um, and then some people just drop it because you had some pretty cool things happen, like the sign from the universe came through. Well, actually, sorry, that was later. But then Bruce had his thing with the back that you navigated in the moment, because the thing is, we're going to have challenges and we've got to be able to process them so we don't store it. You were able to have some really great conversations. So I coached you on, well, how would you say it? And oh, I wouldn't have said it that way. And I actually give you, I work more in the moment.
yeah,
And so I gave you some support on how you could say it instead. And you actually went and implemented it and didn't expect to change straight away. But then Bruce started to turn around and you started to make this momentum. And then I'm like, damn it, I hope I get to work with these people for longer, because then, something happens and then it just goes back to how it was. So you kept on releasing after we had finished. And actually, you got a really significant result with food releasing on your own. So this was not facilitated, this was not supported, and this really lets you know that you get the process. But one of the things that we can release on, it's not just people, but food can be one of them. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your food sensitivities?
Yes. So I have loved legumes. I love chickpeas and lentils and all the rest of that. And then somewhere around 2014, 2016, I decided to go a bit more vegetarian. Um, and so I was pretty much supplementing all my like big lunches and dinners with chickpeas and lentils. And then my body started to react in a way it had never reacted before. I'd been eating these things for years. But suddenly I was like in pain and bloated. I got constipated. Like everybody's like, oh, just eat more fiber, eat more chickpeas and lentils. Well, I'm doing that, and now I can't go to the toilet, and it's painful, and I'm in extraordinary pain. So I stopped eating them, and every now and then I'd accidentally eat something with them, and or just go, oh, how bad can it be? And the reaction would be almost immediate, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I ate the wrong food. And then I released on chickpeas, and it was I'd put too much pressure on it to be vegetarian, so I didn't have to eat animals anymore. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just really want to enjoy you again because you're really yummy. You make a curry delicious. I love it. And then I can eat chickpeas again.
Yeah.
I haven't had the same success with chia seeds yet.
Gotcha.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, um, I, that's something I've just decided. Well, do I really need to eat chia seeds?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things like a superfood. And
Yeah,
I know some people go, oh my gosh, I've got this and I need to eat healthy and organic and it's so expensive, so I can't do it. I'm like, to be honest, you don't need those superfoods. Like, I remember when goji berries came out, I'm like, my mum used to put this in our soup when we were younger and tell us we have to eat them because their eyes are going to be better. And I swear they only cost like $2 a kilo in the Chinese shop, but now they're like $50, $100 a kilo
yeah. I
in the.
even planted a goji berry shrub in my front yard as part of my edible.
Oh, do you get goji berries out of it?
Uh, I got goji berries. I got fresh goji berries off it, but that it's doing its own thing now.
It's left to run free. But there's a lot of people coming with multiple food sensitivities, and I think that's just really cool. It's not to say that everyone's message will be around legumes the same thing. It's a very unique story, but it's so
Yes.
cool that it was as simple as that. You were ready to explore it. You don't have to eat chickpeas, but hey, you now know because it was quite bad, the reaction that you
It
would
was
get.
so bad. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could not be. Yeah. It was horrendous. So yeah, just to be able to like just go to a restaurant and go, yep, I'm going to have the chickpea curry today. Yep,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
eat it and be okay. Yeah.
Mm. So moving into one-to-one, I don't know how it came about, if you just dropped an application in my inbox or you messaged me to say you were interested in one-to-one work. It was really interesting because at the end of that year, like I love working with people in pain, but first we've got to get the pain levels down, health a little bit better before they can access that deeper work. Because I'm ultimately all about live out your soul purpose, what you desire, manifestation, and this realization that actually people just want to get their health back and out of their pain. They don't care about manifestation. I remember when I had my health issues in 2012 and 13, I didn't freaking care about manifestation. So I have to be careful not to load too much onto people, but I
Yes.
want to let them know what's possible. But at the end of the year, I did have three people join me that weren't in significant amounts of pain, but knew that they were here for more. And so curiosity, I say, is the best thing. Plus, I know that there were some dynamics that were still in transition, especially around what you wanted and needed. And that was actually highlighted in your releases. I say, I can see why people aren't getting what they need or want in life because they're not actually asking for it. So this
Yes.
really highlighted, and you took such responsibility for like, oh, okay, I need to change. It's not that everyone else needs to change around me, but what were your you talked about this a little bit earlier. You didn't really know. You didn't really know what you wanted to do with your life. You're quite comfortable with work, you're in a stable relationship, um, you've got animals. So everything is fine. Um, and yeah, I kept on probing, and you came up with this really beautiful desire. So, do you want to share that desire in a little bit more detail with us? Because I think there's such power in actually sharing and verbalizing. It was quite emotional for you as well. And I think with this, there can be a lot of fear of criticism and judgment. Like,
So it just bubbled out of me that I wanted to give land back to the First Nations people of SA. I didn't know, and I'm still not quite sure how, but I know that it will come. And for me, it's land back as a education centre so that all the First Nations people of SA can connect with country and culture and language and ceremony. Um, like an Indigenous university where people can come and just have that safe space to be and not be afraid to learn, and also for non-Indigenous people to come along and learn to walk on country and learn to live sustainably. I had this vision that there'll be buildings on there that'll be cool in summer, right now warm in winter, withstand bushfires. The land is abundant with, the plants and animals for food and medicine and ceremony, and the elders, past, present, and emerging, are returning the land to its true nature. And it's just, I'm already in discussions with somebody about how that can happen. So, yeah, like whether I win the lottery, whether I dedicate time to helping this vision come to fruition. Like I'm really excited that this is something, and not something that I'm curating, but something that I can give back so that the elders can actually utilize in the way they need to and want to. So it won't be me going, I've given you land back, therefore you must do this.
mm.
It'll be very clear that I'm giving you land back and you can do what you want, but the vision is that it'll be to connect with country, right? Because that's been stolen for so long, and just have that space to do this again, which is, I know it's so important. When I speak to one of my friends, she talks about the young people feel lost because they no longer have that connection to country, and it's like a spiritual death for them. And it's just like, well, I would love to be able to give that space back where they can find that spiritual wholeness again. So yeah,
I
I'm
love
excited for that.
that. And it flowed out of you, and it's like, that's it. I think there was quite a few tears at the time, but as you articulate it more and you've spoken it out, you've started to attract the right people. You've got your beautiful friend Dana.
Yes.
I've heard lots about Dana, and yeah, you've started to make those connections. And I love that feeling of just knowing it's going to happen, but also we still take responsibility of what is the structure, what is the foundation of how we can create this and speak it and share it. Now, as I was listening to you, I just hear so many underlying themes is that you don't necessarily want to give what you want to give or provide it in a way. You've got an overarching vision, but actually you want to know from them, what is it they need? What is it that they want? And so for me, I say, well, you've got to be really clear about what you need and want, not just in regards to this desire of what you want to create, but in the here and now and all of your interactions. Like communication is one of the pillars. It's sort of like that fifth pillar that I teach people, because you've got to have a foundation to be able to receive feedback and not take it offensively. And when you said connect the land back to its true nature, this actually used to be the tagline for release. I've actually changed it to process your emotions, receive the messages, and activate your healing. But ultimately, it leads you to connecting with your true nature. So then I say, well, you've got to connect in with your true nature as well and continue to live that, because you might have an idea of it, but as you live it, it becomes uh, just clearer, more solidified, where people are really feeling it. And when they feel that energy from you and who you are, because you're an amazing person, then they want to get on board. Plus, you've got this kapha dominance in your body as well. And that makes me feel like, yeah, that's on track. Like you're going to bring people together. You're not necessarily going to do this on your own and community. Like most people desire community, but there are certain types of constitutions that really thrive on it. And if you get too isolated, then that can sort of wreak havoc on your health. So that's something new that I don't think I've shared with you because it's getting clearer for you.
Yeah. And I'm able to speak that desire, every day. I don't need to refer to my notes like I used to have to. Like I can just,
Yes.
I speak it. I just speak it. I feel it. I smell the gum trees. I hear the birds. I can hear the birds now.
Yeah.
And I can feel the wind. I just, I just sit there with it and just, I feel it. I feel it in my bones, literally.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is so good. So let me describe. I know you're going to watch something of mine a little bit later, but as I do more of this work, which I've felt like since 2020, it's been my sole purpose, and things have just rolled out in the most incredible way. Even just everything's fallen into place that I've put out there. So I talk about the cycle of growth and evolution. The first one is you process your emotions. The second one is that you get the messages. And these are the pillars we go through with work together. And when people are working with me after release, after they've received the messages, it's like, well, you better do something with those messages, integrate it into the vision in your life. Now, I was really amazed because you were working full time. And so I'd often hear from you in the evenings or you do your homework on the weekends, but you
Yep.
did all of the work. So we moved through everything pretty quickly within a few months. And I was constantly telling you, like, Vanessa, just like you're moving ahead really well. Like some clients haven't even done this by this stage. They're dragging their ass around it. I'm like on their back because it feels like doing, but creating a vision for yourself. I have like worksheets, a structure around that, and you did it. And then I gave you feedback on it and you tweaked it. And then after that, we've got to start setting goals to actually make sure that vision, um, not just the land back vision, but the vision for all life areas, your health, your family relationships, business, career, finances, personal growth and development, social relationships, and spiritual. We've got to make sure they happen because they can sometimes feel so big and lofty that it feels unachievable. So then we go, oh, why would I do it? Because it requires work. And
Mhm.
so breaking that down and making sure every action we take is for the bigger picture. A big thing though that I also realized is that when we don't have a big vision, we get caught up in what else can I do? When actually it's more, what can I let go of? And we've talked about decluttering for your personality type as well. You actually decluttered, which is really cool. Um,
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a milestone. I know that you're transforming. I know that you're moving forwards. And then we have a desire. So this land back is actually just a very focused desire that's taken from a vision, taken from the coaching. And then we're going to work on communication and speaking our truth and understanding how we communicate and understand how others communicate and so on. So anyway, I wanted to take you through that again just to refresh you. But the thing is, like, you're embodying it. You're not just like, oh, I've done vision, I've done my goals, I've done my desires. Here they are, Jen. And to here, we're not working to, oh, no, we are working together. We're working together in a lower touch group container at the moment, which I absolutely love. And you're still implementing it because it's no good just to write it down. You've got to embody it. And so the
Mhm.
fact that you can take it from like this almost unconscious space and you can get the feelings is so powerful. Like you talked about some of the senses of being able to smell the gum trees and hear the birds. Like, what is it visually that you can see? Uh, what are you eating? Now, smell and taste is actually not huge when it comes to future visualization, but I love that you can smell something. But you might be like, oh, actually, let me think about what food I'm going to be eating with people. Am I going to be eating mangrove worms? Maybe not there. And what are you feeling is so important. And like, I just see you light up when you talk about this desire, which is why I was like, that's what we're going to go for, even if it feels impossible. And so many people try and tap into future visioning, and I often see them do it without support. And they're trying to access these really to bring in what you want in the future. Feeling is so important, um, as well as the other senses, but feeling is so important. But why it doesn't land for people, why it doesn't feel possible, is because they haven't even felt emotions from their past experiences, which is why you started there. and you still go back there sometimes, you are able to feel the pain, the discomfort, sometimes the joy from positive releases. And that is what helps you tap into your future.
Yeah. And so just to know that that's possible, like I know it is possible. I know it's going to happen. I don't
Mm,
know the when, but I know it is. That it just is going to happen. So, and I'm just so excited. I talk to people about it, like, oh yeah, I'm working on this, and they're like, oh okay. And then I spoke about it in another group, in a systems leadership group, when I gave my acknowledgement of country, and they're like, just the passion that we can feel is amazing. That this is important work. So, no, yeah, I'm excited for how it will come about.
yeah, me too. We'll keep on celebrating little milestones. You make sure you keep in touch with me about that and
Yes,
celebrate with our group as well.
yes,
So what else happened? Let me just have a look. I've got some notes. Okay, so let's talk about communication and what you realize. Difficulty asking for permission around the no.
yes. So my communication style is taught me, Jin, is I'm good on the first ask, I'm good on the second ask, and then I fall apart on the third and fourth ask.
Yeah,
And I get either too give up or too in your face.
yeah.
So it was about navigating, like even after I came home, my parents had to drive me around to places.
Mm,
And it was like, oh, Bruce can come and pick me up afterwards. And mum and dad are like, no, we're going to stay here with you for the 3 hours that we're sitting around waiting for something. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, Bruce can come pick me up. He's already said he can. And they're like, no, we're going to stay here. And I talked to you about that. And you're like, Vanessa, the first ask, the second ask, be stronger on the third and fourth.
mm.
Because Bruce can step up and he can do these things for you. And your
You
parents are
won't be
being
able to.
magnificent. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he can, and he's able to. And your parents are being magnificent to get you there. But they need to accept that they can now go home
Mm.
and someone
Yeah.
else.
Create the space for him to be able to step up.
That's right. So, yeah, that was really just amazing to see that it still was playing out. Like I
Mm,
felt like I'd got the lesson, but it was still playing out.
mm.
Um, and being able to receive a no, like asking for help and being able to receive a no. And at first I was like, no, this is bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I want to take you back because this is like after ponies, pins, and tonic.
Mhm.
One thing was when things started to move, where it's like, oh, Bruce might actually sell his job, sell his business, and all that kind of stuff. It usually came out of you breaking down in tears
Yes.
and to like get to the point of asking for what you need.
Yeah.
So, what did you learn? Well, first of all, I really acknowledge you for actually having the conversation. Not that we have tears to manipulate an answer or anything like that, but it's actually just like, holy cow, this is what I'm actually holding in onto.
So it was about that being vulnerable. So, I try not to be vulnerable, like, because, I'm a tough, strong, independent woman. It's just like, I don't need to be vulnerable. But learning that I can be vulnerable and, I can ask for things from a place of vulnerability, as well as a place of strength. And I think sometimes we downplay our own vulnerabilities, and I was doing that big times. So
Mm,
just learning to be vulnerable and just say, this is what I need from you. And then, okay, I'm not going to get it, but I've asked. And
yeah.
sometimes I haven't asked the right way.
Yes, I
um,
can't remember the example. And I was like, no, Vanessa, you're still not asking for what you want. It was something around what's your schedule looking like? And it's like, no, you don't want to know what his schedule's looking like. You want to know, can you take me to the physio?
yeah, I'm still trying to pussyfoot around. It's like, what do I
Yeah.
want? It's just like, just ask and you get the yes or the no. And just learning that. And because it's an everyday practice, it's not a
Mm.
one and done. Like it's an everyday practice.
Yeah. And it's not just for the big things. Did any feelings of rejection used to come up for you?
Uh, yeah. So I'm like, oh, so I'm not that important. And then I'm like, no, actually, I am.
Mm.
Um, but also Bruce has to work. Like he runs his own business, and if he doesn't work, he doesn't make money. And luckily, I have a job where I could just drop everything if I needed to because I have a very understanding workplace. But not everybody has that ability. And,
Mm.
and so, and I think that was one of my values that came up. It was perspective. I'm like, oh yeah, I can look at things from this perspective and that perspective, but I wasn't looking at it from the perspective within my own house.
Yeah.
So coming to that realization, I think was really important. It's like, oh yeah. And then after that, Bruce is doing everything in his capacity outside his working hours. He's taking me to appointments, doing all the housework. That was another thing that was,
We'll come back to that in a minute. I just realized something. I've got a timeline in my head where I feel like it'll flow. Is that okay? Because yeah, we're talking about um, the communication piece, and I was like, oh gosh, we could skip past this, but I wanted to ask a little bit about your upbringing, um, just in short.
yeah. So my mum accidentally had me when she was very young. She got married when she was 20. She had me at 21. She was in quite an abusive relationship. So she ended up running away with the man who became my dad when I was about 18 months old. So they ran from New South Wales to South Australia, basically without telling anybody where they'd gone, just to get out of this domestic violence situation. And yeah, dad adopted me very early on. And to him, I am his daughter. And, it's just this amazing story of people keep saying to me, "Oh, you're just like your dad." It's just like you look like your dad, you talk like your dad, you act like your dad, and you look like your mum. One's a mad redhead, and the other one's quite swarthy. So two very different people that I look exactly the same, and one I'm not even related to from a blood perspective. But um, to know how strong my mum had to be, because that would have been 1973, to leave a situation like that with no support and no help, just run, like just the strength that took, how amazing that was, how brave she was, just amazing stuff. And the fact that dad was able to support her
Mm,
to run and to then raise me. And then they had my brother like about 4 years later. So just this tight family that we grew up together over here in South Australia. And I'd still go back to New South Wales and see family. So we never lost that connection.
mm.
Um,
So
and
you see your
just
biological dad's family.
so yeah, so I'd see my grandmother and his sister, but I didn't see him. And my mum was quite clear to not see him until my grandmother's dying wish was that we would meet. And when she was dying, she was on her deathbed. I actually caught the bus over to New South Wales to meet up with him, but she had died while I was on the bus over there. But I spent time with him and his partner and her daughter. She's my sister. And we're in communication. So yeah, there's that whole beautiful relationship that's come out of something that was quite dark to start with.
Mm.
When I asked Dad, I said, "Oh, did you used to want to, punch John in the face when you knew what he was doing to Mum?" And he's like, "You saw the size of him. I wasn't going up against him." But I got your mum a lawyer, and I got her out of that situation. I just wanted to get her out of that situation.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, this amazing story of, I think, survival and doing what you can do and what has to be done just inspires me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so much love in that house. Yeah.
I know, and I feel it. And this is the thing is that people are always asking me, what's the metaphysical meaning? Or there can be an assumption that you'll have loads of trauma around certain experiences, but it's like everyone's experience is unique. So I'm not going in there going, Vanessa, you're adopted. Surely you've got trauma around this. Surely you do, and whatever, right? We were actually doing a lot of positive type releases. I mean, you had obviously done quite a bit of more just like self-driven, intuitive
Mm,
work from a very young age around your relationship with your parents. And you've always had open conversations with them and really shared with them how much you appreciate them. I really love hearing about them and how supportive they still are of you. I was often getting confused. I was like, can you just give me like names? Because I know there's like your dad that adopted you, but you really identify him as your dad
yeah.
and as a biological. So, um, yeah, but we did do some releases around your biological dad, John, who had passed away as well, just to see where things were at. And it's a really beautiful process. Um, I actually can't remember. Did anything come up significant around that? Because people think automatically that feelings of abandonment and rejection is what
Yeah.
comes up, but I don't know how much.
No, that's not what came up. It was that, I was afraid that he'd hurt my mum.
Mhm.
Um, but when my grandmother was dying and mum let me go over there, it was because she knew he would never hurt me.
Mm,
So I was safe to go over there because that's not where his violence was directed. It was never at me.
mm,
So she was confident that I would be safe there.
mm. Because
So
how old
that's
were
what
you?
came up.
12 when you jumped on the bus, or 15?
14 or 15, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I've jumped on the bus by myself. I traveled frequently by myself. I love, hopping on the planes by myself when I was, you know, the solo child traveler. I was the solo child traveler. Loved it. Loved it. It was great. And I still have a bit of solo travel.
Yes, that's so
Um,
cool. Is there anything else that you want to share about your upbringing or anything else before we move forwards a little bit more?
no, it's just it was just a loving household. Obviously there's always arguments about any household. But yeah, it was just a place where, I could grow up, and I was actually given a lot of ability to just find myself. And I know mum and dad were proud. I was the first person in the family to go to university. They'd gone to teachers college, but to go to university. And yeah, I just know that mum and dad were so supportive of pretty much every choice that I made. Oh, I want to do this now. Okay, off you go.
Yeah, yeah, and all the travel and everything that you do. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Okay, so then because there are some clients that I continue working with for, couple of years. Some of them are coming up to 3 years one-to-one, and sometimes it's like, actually, I think you do really well in this group. So I think, yeah, we had only just finished, and oh yeah, okay. So this is my thing, like just I call it social manifestation, like social media manifestation, where I share, what I've got my mind on, rather than waiting for it to be ready and then putting it out there and realizing no one wants it. And I was getting people saying, "Oh, I'm interested." And I did do a little retreat with my friend Sam here, and we just had a couple of people. We tested it out. It was that afternoon, and I was like, "Oh my God, we need 5 days for this," because I like to go deep. And then I put out that horse and human thing, and you're like, I'm keen. And as you said, it's like, you're like ready to come over. I'm like, I don't have any information, I have details. And then I went to see a psychic. So my sign from the universe was because I was going through a whole bunch of up leveling and ideas, and I'm like, oh, should I do it? Should I not do it? Blah, blah, blah. What have I got to let go of? What if it doesn't work? And so I asked for a sign from the universe. This is where your meme comes up. And my sign is like seeing triple number plates and all that kind of stuff. I see a lot of them in Monica. And then I asked for a signia sign. That was your meme. Like you asked the universe for a sign, and then you're like, no, give me a signia sign. And then I was driving through Luggett and my jaw just dropped. And it's like, okay, give me a sign. Should I really, really do this? And I had three number plates, triple number plates, um, coming past me. I was like, okay. And then I think at some point I said, all right, next sign is that I see a wood pigeon. And they're not that common around here. They're quite distinct. You can hear them when they fly through. Just, yeah, very distinct sound. I'm like, where am I going to see a wood pigeon in Wanaka? I've never, ever seen one. And so, of course, the mind has these limitations of how it's not going to work. And I always wanted to see this psychic. She lives down in Invercargill, only sees people in person. I was going to get her to come up to our property and see a bunch of people, but then I found myself going down to Invercargill for a trek with some girlfriends. Someone posted it on Queenstown Trading that they had a property down there. I was like, oh, the psychic's there, so let's go see her. Um, but anyway, I was on a horse trek and I hate it when my horse spooks. I was actually riding one of my calmer ones, and then a wood pigeon flew across the trail, spooked my horse, but instantly I was like, I don't care about the spook. Oh my gosh, my sign. My signia sign. So I love that you had the budgie. And then I just kept on seeing wood pigeons, even when I was back in Wanaka. And then friends were seeing wood pigeons like in our area in Queensbury. And she actually said, I wonder if they flew down to your place. It was everywhere. And again, yeah, you can ask the universe for a sign, but is it telling you you're in flow or is it telling you, yeah, go? Like, do you actually know what the universe is telling you? Um, and actually, so that psychic, I said, should I do stuff with humans and horses? And she said, yeah, you just need to talk about it more. So I was like, okay. So I was driving home from Invercargill. It was like a 6 hour drive with a horse. And I'm like, I'm just going to speak this out. I left you a 10-minute voice message. I'm like, I can't put a group together, but I can definitely do something one-to-one. And that way it's just totally catered for you. You can use whatever horse you want. You can pick and choose. And this is what we can do. Work with the ponies, work with the acupuncture needles, the pins, and tonic. It's just the conversations. It is, we can do releasing in person. And I couldn't believe it. You came back to me and you just said, yep. And I'm like, I know when it's a yes from Vanessa, she is in, this is happening. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I have a few friends that I celebrate with. So I'll let you know, I did message them. I'm like, oh my gosh, you never guess what happened. But there's always a backstory. So that's the backstory. And I couldn't believe it. Doing it before ready, and you knew that I didn't really have it organized, but I know that when it's like, right, follow the sign from the universe, go, it just all falls into place. And it did. It was amazing. And you were actually going, okay, I'm coming over to New Zealand. I'm like, oh my gosh, like someone's moving faster than I am. And the dates just worked out perfectly. You caught up with your friend. Actually, so you were going on 3 months long service leave. And this is really interesting because this injury that you've had, it's like you all of a sudden give yourself space and this next layer comes up for you to work on. And sometimes I feel like we've got to get really uncomfortable until we realize, or sometimes we think, oh my gosh, what if it doesn't get better? What if I'm out for this long? Because you had some plans of hiking and getting back on your bike, because
Mhm.
that's what we didn't touch on actually, is you were doing a lot of exercise and then I just
Yeah,
got you to drop off it, a lot of it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, break up with your personal trainer. You had so many milestones in 6 weeks on that release course.
Yes. Yeah. So I broke up
I
with my
all that was
personal trainer.
fun.
um, because it's just like we're doing the same things, and you know what? I need to rest now. I need to stop doing all the things. So I broke up with my personal trainer.
And
I
there's a
stopped
lot of
riding my bike.
hesitation around that, wasn't it?
There was so much hesitation around that. Like I
You
think
were
I had
more
a few
worried about
false
him than you were yourself. Is he going to get another
right
client?
shoulder.
Yes. We know exactly why that right shoulder got injured.
We know exactly why that right shoulder went. Yeah, I had a couple of false starts. I'm like, yeah, I'll break up with him now, and then it's like, oh no, I can't break up with him. Oh, and then eventually it's just like, yeah, sorry, like
I
we're
got to choose
breaking up.
yourself.
Yeah, and yeah, I stopped riding my bike because I got really weird about it. And I'd ride during 40 to 45-degree days, and I would ride during storms, and it's just like, you know what
And
am I trying to
you would get
prove?
a lot of stiffness and pain and cramps, wouldn't you? But you'd push.
Yes, because I would push and like, if I had to stop the bike suddenly or not, my feet would just cramp up and it's like I'm exercising. I'm supposed to be, this is supposed to be helping me and it just wasn't. So I think at one point you said, Vanessa, you need to start resting, so your body trusts you again. And this might take a few months, this might take a year for your body to trust you again. And I'm like, okay. And also at one point, like I was hiking, um, almost every weekend. And again, it was, during some ridiculous stormy weather. I was going onto trails by myself that were slippery, and I'm clumsy. And I'm be on these trails by myself, during storms with trees thrashing around me and rain pouring down. And I think, it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like I'm doing this out of grasping for something as opposed to because I enjoy it now.
Yeah.
So we had a long chat about, I need to go on freedom hikes as opposed to hiking because I feel I'm compelled to. And I had just started to do that when I was on leave. I was just rediscovering, just going out by myself again and finding that connection to nature and the birds and the beetles and the all the creatures. Not seeing snakes, so that was okay. Just just enjoying being out there by myself. And yeah, I'd planned this 3 months leave. I was visiting a friend in Laos, which is not my favorite weather because it's hot and it's humid. But I walked around Vientiane. I spent some time in Luang Prabang. I spent some time in Vientiane Ven with them. Um, and I've been speaking to you, Jen, and you're like, "Are you trying to pack too much in, Vanessa?" And I'm like, it's all intentional. I've got this. I've got this. I'm going to see my friend in Laos, and then I'm going to come to New Zealand, see my friend, and then I'm going to do pins and ponies and tonic, and then I'm going to go on a silent retreat. I've got this all planned out. You're like, okay, just you're doing a lot. And I'm like, you know, I'm not doing enough.
Well, let's talk more specifically about the horses, the pins, the ponies, the pins, and the tonic, and what happened on that retreat. So, working with the horses, that's where I cut you off, and I'm like, all right, let's dive into it now. So, I let you choose the horses. What was your experience of working with them?
Amazing. So I just loved that. I think the first day I got quite cocky because it seemed to come quite easily on day one. And we're working, and you're like, yep, do this. I was the thing that I struggled with was getting the coordination right. You know, the hand here, the stick here, the rope here, the hand here. That moving sideways when I needed to be moving forward. Like you kept calling me on that, and I'm like, but I'm doing what I can to get in front. Like match the energy, and your energy's too high, your energy's too low. Um, and then day two, like it rained, and I'd got a bit cocky, and I'm like, yeah, we can do this. Um, and you were talking to me, okay, now move the horses. We started to do some liberty work.
Mm.
Um, and it was like, to stop the horse and bring it into you, but I was stepping in too close to both Luna and Tilly. And you were like, stop moving into their space, Vanessa. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but I'm trying to get them to do this. And you're like, you're getting too close. You need to back up and just do it from here. And I think at one point, because my communication wasn't clear, my first ask, my second ask were fine. My third and fourth, I was getting way too much into Luna's space. And she started to tell me off. I remember her like she snaked her head and she bared her teeth and her ears were back. And like she's telling you to get clear. And I'm
Mm.
like, what am I missing? So you coached me through, just this is where you need to step with this energy, not with that energy. And so just really working with that. And I think we also worked with shadow, and I did not connect with shadow at all that first day. Um, and I'm like, I wasn't getting it at all with shadow. She and I were just not connecting at all. And on day four, you said, what horse do you want to work with today, Vanessa? And I'm like, I need to work with shadow. I need
Mm.
to I need to get that connection that we missed because by day three, I think with Luna and Tilly, it was just amazing. I was stepping forward. I was being clear with my communication. We were turning, we were stopping, we were bringing in, we were walking around the circle together without halter leads on at all. So that was perfect. It was amazing. It felt so good. It's like, okay, now I have to return to working with shadow where it wasn't good. There wasn't that connection. And we got it. And we had shadow walking around in the pen with me and just feeling that sensation of, I've got it. I got it.
Yeah, do you know, oh, so good. I'm going to give a little bit of context to this
Mm,
because, so what I say, it's like leadership, boundaries, and connection. And look, I'm only quite new into the horse world. 2022 is when I got my first horse, Tilly, and dove really deep into it. So I know there's very different perspectives, but I like to work with people and what I know. And it highlighted, like I had many light bulb moments that I shared with you. It's like, oh my gosh, and then this is how it translates into human life. So I talk about having, with human communication, you've got to be clear. What is it that you want? What is it that you need? And you ask that with the right words. You know the question you're asking. And you're clear with your body language and also your energy. And that's why when some people respond in certain ways, you're like, is that really what you mean? Because we're actually reading people on different levels. And then when you get to a animal who can't speak words, it's like, well, you've got to be even clearer, more so, well, you've got to know the question you're asking. You have to reflect that in your body language. And sometimes you got to add pressure on, or like 4 levels of pressure. They've got to be very distinct. And you also need to feel it with your energy as well. And so I know with Tilly, if she does the wrong thing in quotation marks, it's never her. It's usually you. What are you not doing with your body language? Where is it that your energy is not great? And so she's really good in that way. And she does kind of like, she doesn't move out on the circle as much. So it can be a little bit intimidating for people, but she's got nice big floppy ears that tell you exactly where she's at. And actually you were so determined. And again, I think that's it really it's parallel with how you have taken this work on board with yourself. Like, I won't lie, there's work, there's discomfort to move through, but you've always embraced it. And the fact that you picked the horse that was hard to work with for you initially, and because I'm like, Shadow, she's like the sweetest horse. You don't like Shadow? Um, and yeah, you're like actually up for the challenge because you know that that is what's going to help you grow. And over those 4 days, we were out in the rain. It would rain in the mornings, or we just like if we were in a group and someone didn't want to be out in the rain, it's like, oh, we're all got to go in. But you wanted to work in the rain, I'm happy to work in the rain. The
Yeah.
horses are happy to work in the rain. And it's like through that repetition, because there's a lot of things to think about. And then you've got to practice them, and then they have to be more unconscious. But you only get experience with things through repetition. And then you can start to break things down and see that process. So, when I teach the release process for processing your emotions, it's structured and then it just starts to flow. And sometimes we need a little reminder, like we can always get better. I always do clinics with Ken Dromgoole. That's who has taught me, and my friend Sam supported me a lot. I learned something new every time because I was just so in my head the first time and whatnot. And having different horses has been great. And this is reflected in human communication, that actually you've got to adjust your energy and sometimes the way that you ask for things, rather than the horse having to change for you. And I was really, really amazed because you were able to get some shifts in the horses that I hadn't been able to get myself. So particularly a couple of them would really race around at the start, but you were able to get them to calm down and walk. And I hadn't been able to do that as effectively as you had yet. I guess I have a bit more of a push energy.
Yeah. Whereas I was just like, okay, I can slow this down. Um, and I would just, yeah, just slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. And a couple of times they would come in and that's not what we meant. So we just push them back out again and just,
Mm.
okay. And I made you pretend you were the horse at one point. But what am I
Yeah.
doing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What do you want them to do? What's your energy saying?
Yep.
And what's your body saying? And that was really profound because you talked about the stiffness in your body. So what I could see is, oh, right, I know why Vanessa and Bruce maybe aren't getting the results, is because like she asks really well the first 2 times, and then when it gets to the third or the fourth time, she just loses it. She just gets in the horse's face or she retreats. And so the horse doesn't know what you're asking. And so that became like, all right, it's definitely not Bruce that's the issue. It's you. So you get
It's
to
me.
work on practicing. What is my third way of asking? What is my fourth way of asking? Or I've got this client, I love the way she says it, I go from 0 to DEFCON 3. So you don't do that, but it just got a little bit messy, and you were able to receive that feedback from me
Yeah.
as well, and you could see it and experience it. Um, Add more to that if you want, but what I was going to move on to was this feeling like you were still stiff in your body. And I was like, I'm so excited to get needles in you. You've experienced my needles before. As you say, I've got chops with you now. You really have to trust. And what I have loved about this is the power of doing all the emotional work and someone not relying on the needles or the treatment fixing them. And so I feel like having done the needling work in the clinic before, it takes on a very different intention from both parties when you're there to receive and surrender. Because one of your desires was to move freely in your body, and you felt like you would shuffle, and you highlighted that you'd move around with the horses, and I'd say, stop going sideways. Like if you imagine you're in a box in life, you want to move forwards. Occasionally you might go into the past, but ultimately you want to move forwards. But so many people stay comfortable and they just sidestep. And that was something really profound for me as a metaphor and an analogy. And it's like, stop sidestepping. Like orientate your body forwards and walk forwards, and then the horse is going to move as well. And I'll quote Ken. I don't know if he got this from someone else, but I shared this with you. He says, you don't want a horse's feet to get stuck. And so you've got to free the mind to free the feet. And I'm like, Vanessa, you've got to stop telling yourself this story that you're so stiff and so stuck. And let me see if you really are. And that's when I put the pins in your shoulder going, you know what, there is nothing here. Like this, you can confidently say you have well and truly moved through frozen shoulder. I love that you knew the underlying emotions. You could relate it to the event that happened in your life. Um, but that's where we did the needling session. And how did your body respond after that needling session? Because this is important when we get to the accident.
Yeah. So that first night we were meant to go out to dinner and I couldn't. I just needed to lie down because when we were first doing the needling, like I just shaking, I was crying, I was flinching, I was doing all of that. And then afterwards I'm just like, I can't I can't function. I need to lie down. I need to because it had all come out of me. And just to know that I had so much stored, and I think it was basically from my butt down to my feet, like everything. I think you felt it, and you were like, "Oh, I see now. Like you've got all this stored in here, and it needs to be let go." And it was uncomfortable, Jen. Like, you were going, "Just breathe," and I'm like, "Ah!"
Yeah, can you talk through, because this is almost like the emotional work where people have a certain reaction or a response to the
Mm.
needle. Can you talk through, I guess, how you felt, how I helped you through? Because for me, I say it's about surrendering and feeling sensation on another level, because we've got to be able to feel to manifest. And this does take all of the emotional work to a somatic level, to a felt experience level.
So you were
But
basically, yeah,
yeah.
just telling me to feel it and not fight it because I was tensing up so much in anticipation of those needles as well. You're like, just relax and breathe through it. And I had snot pouring out of me. I had water coming out of my eyes, wet, but I was also shaking and shivering. Um, and just that whole physical, like, it was so uncomfortable.
I
But you
think you
just
got
coached
cold
me through,
as
and I
well.
got cold afterwards. You had to turn the heater on, and I actually love the cold, but you had to turn the heater on for me. Um, but you just told me to sit with it and not fight it because I think I was trying to fight it quite a bit as well. Like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this uncomfortable, but so I'll just, oh, I shouldn't be reacting like this. And you're like, just feel it and sit with it and be with it. Um, and we moved that on to sitting on my heels as well because my feet wouldn't move. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
after a needle session, yeah,
Hang on a minute. To go back on that, so yeah, we had dinner plans and we ended up just having a cheese platter, which was amazing. But yeah, allowing the space for things to be processed is so important, not just with physical treatment, but we had obviously done that with all of the emotional work in the past. And yeah, shakes, shivers, colds, snot, tears. And it's like, you know what? This is the way your body releases. So you got to see that. I say the body releases physically, physiologically, emotionally. Um, I won't go into details with that because I know that we've run for a while. But then the next day, I needled you, expecting to find stuff, and there was nothing. You're just like,
the needle reaction was so much less. And then by day 3 and 4, it was
nothing.
almost nothing. It was
Yeah.
nothing.
And this is where I said to you, okay, you shouldn't have tension. You've got no physical restriction in here, but you've been in that state for so long, so your body's used to moving in a certain way. And I would like we'd be walking around the property, and I'd be like, swing from your hips. You don't need to shuffle, and stop telling me you can't move forwards because you can. And
Step down to step forward, not
I,
sideways.
I think he said to me at one point, "Oh my God, imagine if I hadn't done all the work beforehand." Because, you might be a bit of a mess with all the things that I was telling you.
But we just kept going hard, and it was just like you'd say, "Do you want to stop?" No, just keep going. Even with the goal setting, like I found that very hard.
Mm. Oh, we went into planning actually.
We went into
We went
planning, and
from the
it's like,
golf.
yeah, it's just planning, and I'm like, this is too hard. Do you want to stop? No, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just like really stepping into that discomfort, because that's why I was there. I wasn't there for an easy holiday. I
Mm.
was there for like, what do I need to learn and what do I need to do to take forward? And just, as an extra bit, when I got off the plane, when I originally arrived in New Zealand, my mate met me at the airport, and then we're walking through Woolworths to get food for dinner. And he's like, "Are you injured?" And I'm like, "No, why would you ask that?" And he goes, "Because you're limping."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Well, I've just been on, a total of like 5 hours of flights, 2 hours in airport, so I'm
Yeah.
stiffened up.
You just expect that that's normal.
Yeah, this what happens now when I fly for, any amount of time." And he's like, "Oh yeah, getting old." And then flying home, I was able to just walk off the plane. There was no
Even though you had
tension
a
in
broken
my feet,
shoulder.
even though I had a broken shoulder. And I'm walking around, getting off the plane, going, "I've literally fallen off a horse, and I can't move my arm, but I can go up and down these steps fine, and I can hop into cars, and I can walk around, and my feet and legs feel great." And I
Yeah.
was so happy with that. I was so happy
Yeah. Had
that
to
I got to
come and
that point.
experience that.
Yep. And so whenever because habits for a reason, and every now and then I can feel it come back a little bit, and I'm like, no, there's no reason for that. Just embody how it feels to move freely. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And we had you sitting because sitting on a prayer stool was quite uncomfortable, sitting on your feet. And so it's like, well, Vanessa, you're trying to like do it exactly how you want it to look like at the end. So of course it's uncomfortable, but like, let's put this down. Let's use a little bit of support. And now it's so cool to hear you're continuing and you're
mm,
noticing little incremental changes. You're not expecting big changes in a short period of time, but giving your body that safety and that space to be able to stretch and move into it. So there is this physical element. But it's like, well, yeah, I know you've done the emotional work. Let's, you know how you reacted the first time, and there's nothing here on the third and fourth day, barely anything on the second day, and you didn't get the reactions anymore, like the
yeah.
shakes or shivers or anything like that. Now you got to trust your body.
Gotta
It's
trust your body.
capable.
Now Bruce is doing some
I can't hear
work
anything.
out the back. Oh, you can't hear anything? That's okay.
Yeah, no, that's all good. I know we've gone for ages. Let's go into the accident. So I'll recap that. You fell off the horse, and this is my issue, is that quite often we don't get space to process it. And of course, people are going to ask you questions, are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. And the body has this really beautiful way of protecting us sometimes. Sometimes it feels the pain, especially when we start to feel safe, and other times it just blocks it out. But it was driving me nuts talking to this triage nurse, and I hate pulling it out, but I was like, I used to be an osteopath. And then she just asks you the most annoying questions, and they're like, you got to go to the ED. And well, now when we look back, yeah, maybe, but actually it didn't really make a difference. And so um, we decided that it would be better for you just to have the rest rather than sit in an environment because you don't like ED. And you started to get the shakes. And you got tears that night when you did wake up. And I said to you, look, I don't think it's broken, but we can never know. And this is the thing, everyone responds differently. But then you're like asking me to crank the heater. Like usually you are a hot-bodied person. I'm like cranking the heater as high as it can go. And you fell asleep in the car. And it's like, just let your body do that. Don't fight it because that's what it needs to rest and repair. So we went through all the scenarios. Like sometimes our mind just wants to know, and I'm like, do you want to hear positive stories? Like you just asked me the questions. You tell me what you need right now. Because as you said, someone asked you, do you want to know the horror stories? And you're like, no, I've been there in my mind.
Yeah,
Don't tell
I've
the
been
horror
there in that
stories.
one.
And
And
then
I feel
mm,
I was going to say, and people give you the horror story unsolicited
yeah,
as well. Like, oh yeah, no, I fractured my shoulder falling off a horse, and they're like, oh, I knew someone who fell over on the footpath and shattered their whole shoulder, and
yeah.
now they can't move it. And it's like, well, that's not what happened to me, and I don't need to know that. I can work out what's going to happen if I don't do everything right, or if it doesn't come good. I want
Mm.
to know positive stories, and you gave me quite a few. including
Well,
horse.
it's only because you said I want to know positive stories and I can't think of any. And then I knew two people who had fallen off their horse and broken their shoulder and actually needed surgery, but were in a good place.
Yeah,
One was recovering, and I will let you know she is in a good place and she's back riding. So that was really cool. I think I let her know. I said, "Oh, this is what happened to um, Vanessa." So I just want to let you know that I shared your story, just so you know that your story is helping. Um, so yeah, you really moved through the motions, and yet we did some acupuncture stuff as well, which is really great. I loved being able to provide that for you. You didn't have any pain. Um, and
no,
this, I think your experience has really helped solidify for me that actually that is another benefit and power of this work is our perception of pain, because pain is a sensation amplified by emotion. I had a
mm,
painless birth when I had Violet, and then in 2014, and then in 2021 I broke my ankle, but it wasn't painful. And then I realized actually I've got a few stories of things that should be painful, should be, and aren't. And I'm like, Vanessa, I think, you're the pattern like that made me realize that this is the power of this work and why people are so shocked. Like, I don't know why you're not in pain. You should be in pain.
in pain. Can I read the letter from the doctor? The
Oh,
little
yeah. Yes. Go for it.
so ended up being referred. So I had to go to an ED in the end.
But even the ED that you manifested was
It
just
was
like
the
sail
yeah,
through.
straight through. I only waited an hour and a half. He was talking in front of my parents about how lucky I was, that was all I got falling off a horse, because again there are horror stories of falling off a horse. So he referred me to an orthopedic surgeon who I saw, and he wrote the letter, the referral letter. It says, remarkably, despite acute pathology, Vanessa was quite comfortable and able to demonstrate large arc pendular range of motion at the shoulder, full range at the elbow, wrist in hand, and there's an expected degree of arm swelling. So basically, yeah, she should be well in pain, but she's able to do all these things.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, I just can't move it. I just can't.
Yes.
So it
Well,
felt like my body was just protecting me. Like, you're not supposed to move this now, but yeah.
yeah, and then that's one thing that we talked about as well, because I still have the physical therapist aspect in me. It's like, don't protect, like it, and just know, okay, it might give you a little bit of pain, but don't think that you're like breaking it more or tearing things. Like where our mind goes is crazy. And what it just felt like everything we had done leading up to this was setting you up for this. And we say challenges happen. What is the message from this for you to be able to receive? And this is where I said sometimes we know the things we've got to do to ask for what it is we need, but then we've got to be forced into that position. But
Yeah.
now you were so better set up to be able to lean into that. And I saw you navigate this amazingly. What we didn't mention is when we did some releases, because I say actually doing releases with me in person versus online is actually not that different. Like you're really coming for the ponies and the pins and the
Yeah,
food
I really was.
and the land, the power of the land. Um, but you had this really beautiful, you did have a really profound release. I think you've said like sometimes it's that realization that I didn't know some things still had such a hold on me. And the dogs just chilled out on you. And then all three horses were lying down outside. I'm like, Vanessa, I just got to tell you, this is what's going on. And I think I took a photo for you. It was really amazing just to go, all right, it's felt out there as well.
Yeah.
It's not, they hadn't really done that over the past few days. And, um, but you having the response to a trauma, a physical trauma, it's like, you know what? You felt that with the needles. You felt that with the releases that your body releases physically with the shakes. You get cold, you get sleepy. Sometimes you get a bit snotty and you have some tears. That's yours. It's not everyone's, because some people will like go to the toilet and have runs. Some people will throw up and like you got to let it out. And that's why I think you were able to embrace it and process it so well. I mean, you've had some stuff pop into your mind, but most of the time when we talk, it's just like, oh my gosh, Vanessa, like everyone's like, oh my gosh, how are you handling this? You're improving so much quicker. But you had to get on the plane. And I said, you're gonna have to ask for help.
And I'm like, I'm not asking for help.
So tell us through, the realization of strangers and
Yeah. So I don't like asking for help. I feel very independent, but I had to ask for help. And there are a couple of hiccups with asking for help and a couple of amazing stories of asking for help. So when I got off in Auckland, I'm like, I'm going to need some help to get my bags off. And this person's like, oh, go over and ask that person. And they weren't there. So I got the bag off the conveyor myself and put it onto the trolley myself. And I'm like, I'm just doing this. And they're like, how do I get to this hotel? And it's like, oh, you got to catch a bus. And I'm like, how am I going to catch a bus? How am I going to get my luggage on that? I'll catch a taxi. And the taxi's like, no, I'm not leaving my spot here to go to that hotel. You got to catch the bus. Anyway, people helped me get my stuff on the bus. People helped me get the stuff off the bus. People helped me get it up to, like, all of these people helping me to get what I needed to do. And it was like, oh, okay. So I can ask strangers for help. And yes, there'll be a no or not a yes in the right way that I want it.
Mm.
And so navigating that, and even navigating the physios and the rehab that I've been doing, and having that reaction again, like the first physio that I went to for my first rehab session, like he's asking me to do things, and I'm like, I've been told I shouldn't do that yet. And he's like, we do this, and then he's got me on the table and he's moving my arm around, and I started to get the shakes and the shivers and the tears, and he's like, well, obviously this is, hurting you. It's like, it's not hurting me. You're in my space. And I talked to you about that afterwards. Like, be very clear and communicating your physio what you want. And so
Mm.
the next session, I'm just like, this is my reaction to people in my space doing things to me that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I said, so it's not you, this is my reaction, but just be aware this is how I might react when you're asking my body to do something that I feel uncomfortable about.
Yeah. And not telling you what you're feeling, which is not pain.
Yeah,
And you have to build that trust relationship in your practitioner as well. And
yeah,
it's like, oh my gosh, I want to see you. I'm like, don't worry, you're going to attract the right person, but you have to just like lay the framework out for them.
yes. So doing that, and then starting the hydrotherapy, and I just that hydrotherapy was in a group. I love the one-on-one work.
Yeah.
I loved all the focus on me. And it wasn't at the right time. So I found a physiotherapy place that has their own hydro pool, and doing that. And even I went to a session on Wednesday, and he said, you're not hitching your shoulder up as much. So even these little things of,
Well,
you
they're
know,
all telling you that you're progressing so much faster than what you thought you would.
that's correct. And even like after that first physio appointment, I actually went home and cried because it was
Mm.
like, he's not doing the right things, and it felt awful,
Yeah.
and then I went and found an online video which I'd been looking at what rehab exercises I would need to do online, and I couldn't find anything I liked the look of. And that night something popped up that was, here's this guy doing actual weekly rehab exercises for my exact injury.
Oh, that is crazy.
And it was so much more because the physio had given me these two little exercises that I'm like, oh, they're so easy. I've been doing more than that probably when I shouldn't have been, but I was, because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to not use my arm if I can use it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's also not being like restricted to a protocol, like you need to do this at
yeah,
week 2, week 4.
yeah, that's
And
right.
just to add to it is, yeah, what we kind of perceive, because you look at an X-ray, you're not looking at X-rays every day. But again, like the images don't always correlate with what's going on. So you did want some reassurance. And my dad used to be a radiographer. So I'm like, what do you think of Vanessa's X-ray? And he's like, poor lady, but she'll be okay. And then you had a friend who also just gave you some reassurance as well, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. We want to know what's going to
Mm,
happen.
yeah.
And I mean, my lesson in my ankle not healing for over a year was it had a deeper message for me. But my work is about when you have challenges like this, because they can happen, how can you move through them as quick as possible?
And so I was like, found this video online, and he's like, he does it in stages. And he says, this is, from week, it was week 4 to 5, you can do this. And they were so great. Like, there were little isometric movements. There were, the pendulum swings that we'd been doing, when I was still with you. And it was like, okay, I feel like and we get back to, I like to control things. I felt like I had more control over my physical body about how I was going to heal. And so I've been doing this, and he's at the point now. This video is like, oh, I don't need to. I'll give you this one little extra, but you're already doing the exercises that I would give you anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so just being able to do that, and
I
just
just I want you to really acknowledge, I always remind you, just you've got this ability to already lead yourself on that right next step. And sometimes it's nice to get that reassurance because we don't always know if we're missing something or if we're pushing too hard if we haven't experienced it. But also, it's a real skill for a practitioner to treat someone like an individual. And I do think we've got to build that relationship. So I'm glad that you didn't just ditch that physio, and you went back and you had the hard conversation because we've got to look at, what needs to change and where can I share with them. And I just said, look, you've got to give them a chance to actually get to know you, Vanessa, and don't be afraid of just saying how things are. Um, but yeah, it's just progressed along so nicely, and you've gone back to work. But if we wrap this up, it was more around some of the things like asking Bruce to step up and do things, and this is what I think your shoulder was about, right? Oh, I'm an independent woman. I'll just do it myself. And you had the dog, one of your dogs needing to get teeth pulled out.
Dental surgery.
Yeah. Didn't want it to go in your dad's car, appointments, all that kind of stuff. We sort
Yeah.
of touched on it. But what's come out of being really clear about what you need?
Um, that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to get the no. And it's marvelous to get the yes.
Mm.
Um, and also just navigating that whole I I needed to learn to ask for help because I wasn't good at it, and it also forced me to rest,
Mm.
which I loved immensely in the end. Like I loved sitting at home for 5 weeks, not being able to go anywhere other than
Oh,
appointments.
yes, because you had to cancel the silent retreat.
Yes, I did have to cancel the silent retreat, but I was able to rebook it for later this year. So all of the things that I wanted to do this year, I'm still going to be doing this year.
Mm.
But that whole um,
Can you talk about the vacuum cleaner?
the vacuum cleaner.
Oh,
So yes,
or not vacuuming the way you would vacuum.
yeah. So Bruce had to do the vacuuming for me, but he wasn't doing it the way I wanted him to do it. And then he's like criticizing me, and I'm like, no, I'm just telling you how to do it more efficiently. And it's like, no, you're criticizing. So I just walked away. In the end, I just let him do it. And then he came back to me, he goes, that vacuum bag was really hard to empty. And I'm like, that's because you don't empty them, you throw them away, they're disposable. Like he's like, oh. But then I came home a couple of weeks later, all the vacuuming had been done. I'd gone to mum and dad's place for lunch. And he goes, you want to see how I did the vacuuming? And I'm like, sure. And he'd turned the vacuum cleaner into a backpack because he said, that's really annoying to drag that thing around. And I went, I know. And he's like, so putting it on your back is even easier. And I went, let's just get a backpack vacuum cleaner.
Or did you buy a backpack vacuum cleaner or use his
We now
information?
have one. Bruce went
Oh
and
my
bought one
God.
last weekend.
I love that because I got a photo of Bruce wearing the vacuum cleaner. I'm like, see, if you didn't break your shoulder, you never would have gotten this, and you would have been stuck with the vacuuming all your life.
So yeah, just learning how to just give space to that has been amazing. And just being able to sit back and take those lessons in. And I think one of the things you talk about me as well, Jen, is I put a lot of energy out for other people as well. And we talked about that on the one-on-one, and especially doing that the planning. Stop trying to work around other people. They need to work around you.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, okay, so the shoulder pretty much made me do that. Now I have to think about what do I do for myself now.
Well,
Um,
because there were a lot of things that you had been gifted and you hadn't actually implemented. So I said, can you just
yeah,
like roughly schedule it in? And
yeah.
and then you even got back in May. We just had to postpone your decluttering, but you started decluttering in May.
I started decluttering. I'm just like, I can do decluttering one hand, so I'm going to keep doing it
You've never
by
let
letting.
it stop you. That's what
I don't know.
I love. You've just got such a, you know, yeah, just such a good work ethic on your personal life rather than everything else. Um, and there's definitely qualities and values that I see in people that actually get what they want plus a whole heap more out of doing this work. And, stepping into the discomfort of growth after you've worked on the discomfort of the emotions. And I think that's also why we got to work through so much amazing stuff together, is because you hadn't come in with a lot of pain. Like you weren't seeing me with frozen shoulder. And there was this moment of like, oh shit, we've just done this amazing work. You've invested in this. We've had a great time. And then you've gone and broken your shoulder. Not that you've gone and done that, right? But then I got to lean into it,
Yeah,
and it's just been incredible. You have navigated it really well instantly. You're like, everything happens for a reason, but let's find out. And I think we did releases on the horse, we did releases on everything.
yeah,
And it's just incredible to see where
yeah.
you're at.
And people, say to me, "Oh, get the physio exercise, and you don't do the physio exercise." And I'm like, "But I am doing that plus." And I'm just like, I'm finding other things to do. Well, being careful not to do all the things,
Yeah.
like, but to make sure I find the things that are right for me, to help me get where I'm. And that's what my osteo started to ask me now.
Yeah.
I've been told I've got functional use shoulder because I can drive, I can do all the things. I don't have full mobility back. And they're like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe go back to yoga, maybe back on my bike, seeing how people drive it." Sure, I will.
Yeah.
um,
So your sound, just so people know, we're definitely getting the gist of you, but your birds are chirping, so it
okay,
cuts out the sound. But don't worry, you don't need to.
I could actually go and make one quiet. Just can you
Yeah,
1 second?
okay. Okay, so we're sorted the birds.
We sorted the birds. So yeah, just navigating what's good for me, um, and making sure that I do all the good things.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. You're all good. Um, Maybe that's a sign that we have spoken for like almost a couple of hours together. I really, really appreciate it. I mean, you've gone through so much with me. Is there, do you want to finish off, like, share just a few breakthroughs that you had, what you would say to anyone who is thinking about going on this journey, whether it be release or one-to-one or ponies, pins, and tonic? I mean, ponies, pins, and tonic is only for people that have done the work with me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just take the leap, like, because you never know what's going to.
Mm.
And so I think one of the releases that we did was like I didn't realize how it was affecting me, and it was just a childhood memory. But it was a huge childhood memory, and to be able to work through that was amazing.
I think that's the
Um,
one that we did here actually, and it's
yeah,
like, oh, and you got the huge release
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, we could see everything happening in your body with the accident and how your body had actually stored onto past stuff from decades ago. And it's just like, this is just the way the body releases. People get the shakes and they're like, oh my gosh, give me like Valium and or painkillers and all that kind of stuff and suppress. And again, time and place. I'm not saying that this is advice for everyone, but that's where I feel like it's so important to look at the unique individual and how they're handling it, and not to say, you must be in pain. It's like, no, I'm not in pain. And I inadvertently will say that sometimes. Like, pain to me is not just physical discomfort. Um, but sometimes I have caught myself and the person's like, no, no, I'm not in pain. And that all of a sudden makes them feel like they're not being heard by me keeping on implying that they're in pain. It's like just a slip of the mind and the tongue. What was your biggest breakthroughs?
um, biggest breakthroughs definitely working on my communication style, working on or knowing that my physical body can follow my emotional state,
Yeah.
and again, asking for help. And more recently, just knowing that I will find a way to make something work,
Mm.
um, whether because that was one of the releases that came through. I'm always going to do the things that need to be done because I'm amazing.
Yes, yes. Because I'm awesome. I'm amazing. What a good affirmation. An affirmation that wasn't given to you, that came from within.
Yeah,
Um, So thank you. It's amazing. I've been telling so many people, I'm doing a podcast with Vanessa. I've been sharing snippets of your journey, especially some people who are thinking about doing the work with me. And thank you for taking the hit, having an accident like this, a broken humerus. So, which you didn't need surgery for. I'll just add that in. Yeah, just the way your body handled that, and everything about you is just incredible and amazing. I love your energy. I love your memes. Keep sending them through. Laura is still working with me in a lower touch group, which is also amazing. So I wish more people would just continue working on themselves and really recognizing what's possible for them. So I'm excited.
And I think that's the thing about getting that support to make sure you are still moving in the right direction, because sometimes you can veer off a little. So it's good to just be able to just come back to the space and to release and just go, am I on the right path, and just keep on that track, and then you feel it and it's great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa. BT, McGee. Names. It's only for certain people to know. But
Yeah.
thank you for everything, and I will see you soon.
Thanks, Jim. See ya.